Aaron DeFeo, welcome to Serves You Right.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thanks for having me. It's been a long time, man. I'm just great to reconnect with you and glad to see you well.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say congratulations too. I heard best U.S. hotel bar. How did that
Yeah.
feel to hear that?
I mean, obviously it was the highest honor of my professional life thus far. Really justified a lot of time, effort, and sacrifice, not just on my part, but on the part of my team and people around me, people in my life who've sort of allowed me to pursue this whole unfettered, I guess.
Yeah, to be a ninja behind the bar. How does
Yeah.
one build the best U.S. bar in the hotel bar? What is
Uh,
all involved in that?
Very slowly, and not without plenty of problems and setbacks. Um,
Yeah.
we didn't actually set out to do that. If I can rewind just
Oh,
a little
sure,
bit
sure, yeah.
to the beginning of Little Rituals, which was now over 8 years ago that we started this project. Actually, I mean, it's been 9 years since we sort of ideated this. And it took about a year and a half to 2 years to get off the ground. It started with just a simple space available in a hotel. Our partner, my partner Ross Simon, and his part, and both of our partner Rajan Hansji, he owns a corporation, has a bunch of hotels, bunch of franchises. He owned and built a new hotel in downtown Phoenix, and that hotel was a courtyard residence inn combo, which is somewhat strange for a bar spot, but he just had this fourth floor space that wasn't being used for anything. So he turned to Ross and said, "Hey, Ross," and they have Bitter and Twisted, which is right next door on the ground level. Hey, Ross, would you think about putting a concept in this space? And Ross came to me and said, "Hey, this might be an opportunity for you to come up to Phoenix and actually get a chance at a bar of your own," um, which I've been wanting years and years and years and just hadn't been able to get off the ground. Um, it's way harder than people think to open a bar, and it's not just the difficulty of opening it; it's finding the right people and the right financing and the right people to like trust you and give you that opportunity because it's next to impossible to do it yourself. I think everyone has the kind of idea that they can just do it themselves. But just like in life, almost anything you ever do, somebody gave you an opportunity or you found an opportunity or seized an opportunity. There has to be an opportunity because the cost of doing one of these things is easily, I mean, the liquor license alone is $100,000.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That it changes state by state, but that is a huge one in some states.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, down in Tucson it's cheaper, but in Phoenix it was $100,000 when we were looking. So in your budget, that's a tenth of your budget right there for a project. Most projects are probably between 500 and a million. A lot of them get a lot bigger. It kind of depends if you're going in and trying to do like a high dive concept or something like that. You can get away with going into a turnkey space and maybe doing some basic renovations or some DIY stuff. But if you're trying to build nice cocktail lounge from scratch, you've got to be looking at between 700 and a million to start. And that's for like a medium sized one. So most people don't have that money lying around. So you have to find somebody who can finance or partner or some sort of arrangement to get that money. And a bank will generally not give you that kind of money, especially if you have no history of prior successful businesses. And I think that's something that when I was first looking to open a bar, I just assumed we would eventually go to a bank with an idea and we'd sit in a room and show somebody some spreadsheets and a couple like photos and, hey, this is what we want to do. I mean, that's not a realistic thing that happens. Um, so after Ross came to me with that idea, I kind of struggled with it for a bit because it is a very strange place to put a bar. It's on the fourth floor. It's not readily accessible from the ground. You can't really see it. I mean, you see the windows up in the building, but it's not the kind of thing that really stands out.
It's not
And
like a rooftop bar with people hanging over or something like that.
not a rooftop bar.
Mhm.
And I think, going back to my early days of being in bar management and stuff like that, it was all about visibility. It was always like, let's get on a really good corner. Let's be right in the heart of things. Everything was about word of mouth visibility, and it kind of still is, but which is why the rents for corner spaces in really high traffic areas are still the highest, right? Uh, but in this particular instance, we were going to have to bring people into the bar through our reputation alone and through the quality of what we were doing and word of mouth, and really build this thing from the ground up. And it was going to be difficult. And we knew that. So we went into it, not necessarily thinking that we were going to build the best hotel bar in the country, but just thinking that we were going to build a pretty cool and unique space that Phoenix had never seen before. So from the beginning, we couldn't have it just be a standard hotel bar. We didn't want it to look like the Marriott. We didn't want it to look like anything other than what it was.
Which the cookie cutter, thousands of different hotel bars you're in. Yeah.
Exactly. And we wanted it to be something where people walked in and it had a wow factor, but more importantly, it transported people out of Phoenix and into perhaps any big city in the United States or the world. So we borrowed some design elements from really cool spots around the world. All of our initial plans and drawings and boards that we put together sort of lean towards this sort of moody, chic, cool space that there just wasn't anything like that in Phoenix at the time. And so we kind of put that together. We built out the idea, and I decided I was going to leave Tucson and come up to Phoenix. And I thought, okay, we'll probably start building this space out in the next 3 to 4 months. So that's kind of what I prepared for. And I
3
did not.
years later. Yeah.
Yeah. I moved up at the very end of 2018, thinking we would be open at the end of 2017, thinking we would be open by mid 2018 because the space already existed. So it was already an existing bar. We figured we just had to replace some stuff and do some cosmetic things inside of the room. Little did we know, we were going to have to do sonic imaging of the floor in order to put drains in the right places, because the drains that existed just didn't work for any modern bar applications. This was an all new bar built in there. The hotel had been built just earlier the year before. So it was a brand new hotel, brand new space, but the space was not engineered for what we were doing. It was engineered for like a small well, maybe a Marriott happy hour where you would get glasses of wine or something like that.
Or like what I call the in drinks, so gin and tonics, whiskey and Coke, yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and even that, I mean, the actual equipment that was in there, very strangely, was probably about 6 to 8 inches lower than I would imagine anyone could possibly use it. So it's very strange equipment, but we decided, all right, we'll pull this out. We'll rebuild the bar from scratch. We had to do sonic imaging. That cost almost as much as the liquor license, just to make sure that we were not damaging any of the hotel's pipes. That's something that people don't tell you. If you're in someone else's space, you have to be very sort of cognizant of what's going to happen when you drill through the floor, what's going to happen when you put something through the wall. There's all kinds of conduit, all types of plumbing. If we were to rupture a pipe or anything inside the hotel, that could have severely damaged the hotel, put us back, maybe ended our project. So we had to do all of that prep work just to start building the bar.
Sorry to interrupt. We will get right back to Aaron and Andrew. There was some technical difficulties, but I thought this would be a good chance to ask, if you have not had a chance, please share this show with a friend. It means the world for me, and it really does help us grow. All right, back to it. Cool. So we had a little technical difficulty, but we are back on it, and we'll blame that one on me because, technology, who knows? We were talking about the build process. So we just got through the construction phase. It was the 2 years. What happens when you actually go to the process of opening, like making the drinks, that sort of thing?
That went relatively smoothly. I mean, except for the fact that once we were open, we realized we didn't really know how we were going to get people in the door.
Oh, yeah.
Again, there was a lot of press about the opening. We had a lot of initial interest, a lot of cocktail connoisseurs and stuff like that. But you can't run a business like this on cocktail connoisseurs alone, unless you have a 20-seat bar tucked away inside of somewhere else. If you're trying to run a larger or medium-sized business, you need new traffic. You need regulars. You need regular folks who are coming
butts
in.
and seats. You got to have it. Yeah.
And we didn't even have a sign for the first 6 months. Downstairs, inside, anything like that. And we would have, older folks coming in and say, this is kind of a cool place. You really ought to have a sign downstairs letting people know. And we were like, we know, waiting on the sign company. The sign company did legitimately take 6 months, which was another one of those crazy things that you're like, I can't believe this is actually a concern that we have. During the design phase, we had a lot of problems too. We had contracted a company to do the design and like an architecture firm. And the person who was our lead just left the company and did not say anything, and the company didn't say anything to us, and it took 3 months to figure out that they were gone because she was pretty
fantastic,
pretty non-responsive to me anyway. So I would send an email, she wouldn't respond. I would send another one, then my partner would follow up, and she would respond to him and not to me. And then after months, we realized she wasn't with the company anymore, and somebody reached out and said, "Oh yeah, she's not with us." And I said, "Don't you think you would have liked to maybe tell your client
as we're building this?"
Yeah. So we scrapped all that. We basically did the design ourselves, my partner and I, and then with a little bit of help with the actual implementation from some people from my other partner's company. So once we were finally open and we had a team, it was all about trying to train these guys to do these cocktails, because this was, again, taking a concept that had not really existed in Phoenix before and kind of putting it forward. I mean, it was an even more advanced bar build than when my partner opened Bitter and Twisted, and that was 13 years ago, and that was by far
the most advanced.
Yeah, the most advanced one, right? So we're trying to take everything to an even higher level, a little bit more intricate, a little less high volume, but like definitely taxing on the bartenders. And so we had a team. Some were seasoned veterans, some were not as seasoned, and it was just a learning process for me too, because I'd never managed a team like that. Coming from Tucson, we had a lot of people that were really into what we were doing, but they didn't have a whole lot of experience. This was kind of just thrown in from scratch, like, we're going to try to do something really advanced, and I don't think any of us really know what we're doing or have ever really executed it at this level. So it took us a few months to get everything right. And with the first year we were open, I would say I don't think we were a good bar, but we weren't great. And a lot of that had to do with just the team hadn't gelled. I think there was a lot of operational things we were still working out, scheduling. We just didn't get the butts and seats again to start, and that really kind of hurt, because it's hard to run a team and have a team if you're not making money, or if there's a lot of dead days, and if they're not getting the reps. Like, if you have a lot of slow days, your team's not getting the reps that they need in order to be able to handle it when you have a really, really busy Friday or Saturday. So after a year, we started getting in the groove. We launched our second menu, and I think it was really good. And the team started kind of firing on all cylinders, and then COVID happened. Right,
of course.
Right after our 1 year anniversary. So once we closed down, my partner and I sat there, had a really nice glass of cognac, and looked out the window, and we said, we probably will not be walking back into this space, because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how long we were going to be shut down for. And, the bar wasn't really in a place where it could, we were brand new. We had a bunch of debt. Like, what happens if we're shut down for 2 years? Like, it's probably not coming back. We were very fortunate in that respect to have the support of the hotel and our partner in the hotel, because without that, if we had been in a regular lease somewhere in the city, we probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, one of the nameless thousands of places that went under. right when COVID hit.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's wild. For the listener at home, because, I know there's going to be a sizable portion of people who've never been to Bitter and Twisted, and so they don't have a reference point to like that and even more intense. Well, like, can you walk us through kind of some of the different drinks and methodologies you use, kind of the unique things that make you guys you?
Sure. Well, my partner, Ross Simon, comes from a great bartender pedigree from London. He moved over here to the States, I think, in 2005. But he'd been working at Lab, which is one of the foremost sort of originators of the cocktail movement in London. So he trained and worked with some of the best bartenders that have gone on to do incredible things around the world. This is the birthplace of, it's where the porn star was really solidified as a global phenomenon, was in that time. He worked with the originator of the porn star. Porn star Martini.
If you ever beat this guy, it fits. But yeah.
So he came over. He wanted to open his own bar, and he came to Arizona. He loved Arizona, but he came here because there really wasn't much of a cocktail. Well, there wasn't a cocktail culture here, and he thought this would be a really cool place to start something. And he tried for many, many years to get this bar open. I think he tried for probably 6 or 7 years to get the bar open, and he finally found somebody who was willing to take a chance on him, and he opened Bitter and Twisted, which was the most sort of advanced. It was one of the only standalone cocktail lounges that did actual craft cocktails in Phoenix. There was one other place called Merc Bar that had been open, but which I think was a transplant from New York. But even that was not. It wasn't to the same level and intensity. I mean, Ross built this place from the ground up. It was just absolutely gorgeous build, beautiful high ceilings. It was in an old Prohibition office building. I mean, the drinks were, first of all, the menus were incredible. They have 80 drinks in them, which is something that almost nobody has, even today. All the bartenders were free pouring and doing it with such accuracy, and it was beautiful. It's kind of like watching a ballet. They're just making incredible cocktails, everything from the classics that we know and love, but done in a way that just sort of brings them to their truest, best form, and then doing a lot of avant-garde preparations, making everything in-house, cutting his own ice, all this kind of stuff that just wasn't being done, especially wasn't being done in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And, it was
I will say, to his credit, I just wanted to make sure you knew this and maybe let him know next time you see him. I came to do the advanced SOM test in Phoenix when they had it. They only have it once a year, and they chose Phoenix for some reason. I think it's like right in the middle of when it's hottest, so it's cheap to go there, but that's a theory of mine. Anyways, after we get out for the day one, right after the practical exam, I hear some people from like all around the U.S. One lady is like, I hear there's a good bar across the street. I've heard from friends. It's called Bitter and Twisted. I remember hearing that when I was there. I was like, oh, cool. Like, even people from around the U.S. have heard about it. Like, word has gotten out, which is super cool. I just wanted to share that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it grew in sort of fame. And, he's been nominated for World's Best Cocktail Menu, Best Bar in the United States, been in the top, 50 best. The Pinnacle Guide recently, 2 pins. He was one of the first bars to get 2 pins in the Pinnacle Guide. So Bitter and Twisted just has this incredible pedigree, and it's a lot to live up to. And I think when we designed Little Rituals, we took his experience from Bitter and Twisted and my experience from running casinos and doing clubs and just also a lot of really intensive craft cocktail stuff. I have a specific way I do cocktails. He has a specific way he does cocktails. And when we meet in the middle, I think we produce some of our very best work. We go back and forth, and we'll have some pretty, head buddy moments when we're doing stuff. But
a couple of chefs in the kitchen, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think ultimately we respect each other, and we know we're trying to achieve the same thing. And ultimately, what he wants and what I want is quality and consistency, and something delicious. And so, when we designed that first menu. That's kind of how we did it. And I love to say that Ross really puts the finishing touch on things. So I could go through and have a cocktail and present it, and I think it's done and it's perfect and it's beautiful. And he's like, needs a little something else. And it's not that he necessarily adds extra stuff, but he'll just tweak it a little bit, or he'll put a finishing touch on it, or really nails the garnish or the serving style. And it's great to have other people's perspective, because sometimes I think in the industry we are stuck in echo chambers. And if you're stuck in an echo chamber and you don't get outside of that, and you don't see what other people are doing, or you don't have anyone to check your worst impulses, what you end up producing sometimes is great, but sometimes can be, not so great. So
yeah, I mean, you get fixated on those ideas sometimes. Like eventually, it's like no. The Van Gogh peanut butter and jelly like Galliano drink's not working. Just like move on.
Yeah.
Like okay. Yeah.
Oh no, 100%. And I try to do that with my bartenders too. And we've had plenty of bartenders who are very insistent that this is what they want to do. This was my idea, and they'll just keep hammering it. And then at some point, you come in and you say, "What if we're just looking at this entire thing wrong? What if you're saying you really want this? You want this combination, the Galliano and the and the Van Gogh peanut butter and jelly. You want this to work, but what is it you're actually trying to do? Are you trying to do something with a flavor, or do you just like the idea of these two things together? Because maybe we can achieve this, achieve what you want through a different method." So, yeah, I mean, I think it was great to have him as a partner. It's great to have the pedigree of Bitter and Twisted. It was great to have the systems that we ported over from Bitter and Twisted. The two places run very similarly, but with a different flair. Different staffs, different menus, different look, different feel, different music. But some of the bedrock is still there. We're still training people similarly. We're still asking the same standards of them at both places. We have a coaster that we share between both places that has Bitter and Twisted and Little Rituals on it. So it's one coaster that kind of cross promotes both places. We're the sister bar of Bitter and Twisted, but we're not the same place, not the same experience. We didn't want it to be, because then we'd just be cannibalizing our own business right next door.
Sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, like Bitter and Twisted 2.0.
Yeah.
But
to a degree,
a good drink is a good drink,
Yeah, but we weren't trying. We don't look at it as an evolution of Bitter and Twisted. The thing is, Bitter and Twisted was made over 10 years ago, so things that he can't go back and redo at Bitter and Twisted, we were able to change or do at Little Rituals. Maybe when we opened, he's like, I wish we had done XYZ with the bar build. Well, we got a chance to do it at Little Rituals, which maybe he didn't have a chance to do at Bitter and Twisted. And so each time we do a project, we can take a little bit from previous projects and say what worked, what didn't, make a few tweaks, make some adjustments, and then you end up with something that has the same DNA but is very different.
Yeah, I think DNA is a good way to put it, because I was kind of thinking like a little brother. You can tell the familiar, like the family's there, but it's just different. He's clearly the son and daughter of these people, but it's not a twin situation.
Right.
Before we get kind of into your background and how you got into this, I was wondering, just so we can make it a little more concrete, could you pick just honestly any drink, past or present, that you've done there, and kind of walk us through it, just so we can kind of, again, get like the scope for the sort of thing that you guys do there?
Sure. So you want me, like any drink that we do at Little Rituals?
Yeah, like a favorite or something that's been always popular, or I don't know how you do it, but...
Well, I think, I like to look at a couple different drinks that we have. So we have...
Sure.
So when we first opened, we had one of the very first espresso martini machines in the country that did the air nitro pulling. Now they're ubiquitous. You see them. You probably see them in a Circle K, somewhere, or a 7-Eleven. Like the marketing companies have really descended on this and said, well, we can take this and put it anywhere. But at the time when we opened Little Rituals, it was a piece of new technology, and we had one of and also espresso martinis were not very popular. 2017, they were still sort of in the darkness. And then the next 2 to 3 years, that's when the popularity hit. And we like to think we were kind of right on the cusp of that, right on the forefront of that. So we still do that today. We still do the Nitro Espresso Martini. And our idea was to do it as faithfully as possible to Dick Bradsell's original without just doing a 3-ingredient thing. And of course, we weren't using espresso, but we do have our own special Italian coffee cold brew concentrate that we have made for us in locally by one of the greatest roasters probably in America. And so he does a special blend for us, specifically to mimic espresso. So it's not just generic cold brew concentrate that we're buying online or something that we're getting from Whole Foods or something. It's our own special proprietary
Purpose-made.
Yes, purpose-made for this. So we really put a lot of effort structurally into this cocktail, down to a little bit of Demerara sugar we put in there, this Demerara Gom that's got the gum acacia in there that really helps volumize the cocktail and give it a mouthfeel and give it some extra body. So, it's a purist cocktail. It's pretty basic. We're not putting vanilla in there. We're not putting any kind of other stuff. It's a hardcore espresso martini for people who enjoy the actual thing. And so that was one of those first things that one of the first cocktails we ideated for the concept. And it seems really pedestrian now, thinking about it, because in the last 6 years, like I said, everybody has one of these machines. But at the time, it was like, this is something that people didn't get. Like, you just couldn't have a Nitro Espresso Martini at the time.
Well, it is kind of akin to, Del de Graaf using the fresh juice, or Tony Abigano, like there was a time when that was radical, and now it seems like everyone uses fresh juice, but for a while, it's like, okay, yeah, you're making a statement. You're drawing a line in the sand for quality.
Yeah, and there was lots of little touches like that. We have our menu's fun because we have some of these drinks that are somewhat, I don't know, basic, I guess. Like another one's called a conversation starter, and this is, it's vodka, it's aperitivo select, it's a rhubarb and strawberry syrup, it's fresh pineapple and lemon. We put those things together. We make this delicious, pretty aperitivo drink that is just a crushable crowd pleaser, and we sell a ton of those. It's by no means our most inventive cocktail. It's a fairly basic cocktail, but it's delicious. But we like to balance our menu with stuff like that, and then we have our modernist cocktails that are using centrifuges and sonication and all kinds of other things to extract flavor, and we're using Vidalia onion and mushroom and all kinds of other cocktail ingredients that the person who drinks the conversation starter will probably not graduate to those things for quite a while. But we like to think we have 30 cocktails on the menu. We like to think that in those 30 cocktails we can pretty accurately find everyone's taste sort of confluence. Like, I think most people who look at that menu, even the weird stuff, is somewhat identifiable because that's how we make the cocktails. We try to take these unique, strange flavors and present them in something that you can recognize.
Yeah. I like when there are menus you can navigate like that, where it's like, yeah, there is this strange infusion of mushrooms, but it is, if you read the ingredients, a Manhattan. Okay, I could kind of find an entry point.
Well, we list all the ingredients, and then we have descriptors that tell you about the cocktail before you at the top, and it sort of says, cool. Hey, this is a description of the cocktail. This is what it's supposed to taste like. These are the high notes, and then we also give all of the ingredients, and then we have these beautifully illustrated photos of the cocktails, and they are identical to what we give you at the table, which is kind of the rub, right? A lot of times you hear about a cocktail or think about a cocktail, and then what actually comes out is a lot different than what you are expecting. But in our menu, the idea is that what you see is what you get. So you see something, you go, okay, that cocktail looks beautiful. I'm intrigued by the ingredients. It arrives to your table exactly the way it's depicted in the menu, and it has all of the same flavors. And if it says it has something, you can taste it. it's in there. It's not one of those things that's just like completely absent. I think, that's, I've go back and forth on that one sometimes, because back in the day I would put things in there and somebody said, I can't really taste that pear brandy in there. And you say, oh, well, it's not meant to be tasted. It's meant to add to the whole, which can be true. But for the most part, when you're listing something on the menu, there should be some aspect of that people can recognize when they taste it. Like if you were to order pasta, right, and you listed mushrooms as an ingredient, and you got the pasta, and you could neither see nor taste mushrooms in it, you would be somewhat disappointed, right?
Yeah. No bait and switch. Not at Little Rituals. Yeah. No, and I mean, I can see there are some classic cocktails. I'm thinking like the Vieux Carré. Just like when you have like little bits of tiny like spoons of things, like maybe can every taster pick out the Benedictine and that maybe not. You can kind of get that there's a little something in there, but like definitely for craft cocktails, things that you've constructed. Yeah. What are you pulling up?
Yeah, no, I was trying to see if I could pull up one of these cocktails here, but cool. Yeah, so like we have, and then to give you an idea of like something that we have that's you can connect with, but it's a strange cocktail. We have a cocktail called Cream on our menu. It's like abbreviated CREAM, which is a combination of cachaça, calvados, cilantro, green apple, wasabi. Those are an absinthe, and those are kind of all crazy flavors to put together.
Yeah, I was thinking through that as you were saying that.
Yeah, and that's one of those avant-garde ones, right? Completely clarified, but it has such a bright acidity, and you get these beautiful notes. The cachaça, which is aged in Amburana wood, gives you this sort of almost like cinnamon quality to the cocktail. I mean, ultimately, it's an absolutely delicious drink, but the way that we present it and the way that we sort of walk you through it on the menu, it makes it a much more approachable drink than if I was to just list those things and have no picture and have no depiction of it and give it to you.
Yeah. Yeah, if I saw a menu that had no description that just said green apple, cachaça, absinthe, wasabi, I'd be like, what the hell is this? That's super cool. So we've been celebrating for most of the time we've been talking where you've ended up, but I was hoping we could touch back on where you started.
Sure.
Because, I don't think you started off straight into this world. I feel like this was more of a part-time thing from what I understand, reading up
Yeah,
about
well,
you.
it started off many, many years ago, 26 years ago. It started off as me getting a weekend job as a nightclub bouncer. And that sort of... I did it because at the time I was doing journalism. I was writing for papers. I was doing freelance stuff, and it paid terribly. To give you an idea, I mean, it's no secret to anyone that writing is not a very high-paying profession, but it's probably worse than you imagine. And when you do like the freelance stuff, you're looking at the time it was like $20 to $50 for an article, depending on how many articles you would get. Maybe 4 a month, 5 a month. Even if you got weekly stuff, I mean, think about that. Even if you wrote one a day, that's $300 a week. You can't live on that. And I got passed over for a staff position at the newspaper I was doing most of my freelance for. And I was pretty upset about that. And I was like, I just need to get a job, do something. At the time, I was still in college. And I had a friend who I used to coach football as well, and somebody who I coached football with said, "Oh, I've got a friend who can get you a job over at this nightclub. Just go ask for Tex." So I went down there and I asked for Tex, and there's no Tex here. And then this guy came up, and his name was Chucky, and he started talking to me, and then he said, "Oh, I know what you're talking about." Like, yeah, hold on a second, and they basically threw me a shirt and put me into the nightclub, and I had never, at the time I was 18, and I'd never really been in a nightclub before. And so it was my first experience of being in a nightclub was working in one. So I started doing that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, three days a week, maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday. And I liked it. I really liked doing security. It was great. And eventually they tapped me to be a bar back, and I was kind of leery of doing that because I liked the security thing. I said, I'm head of security. I really want to be like head of all security at both locations. And they're like, I think you want to get behind the bar. And I was like, nah, I'm not really that interested. And then, of course, when they put me back there and I started actually making money, that was like, oh, this is actually a great thing. And I did that. I became sort of head bar back. And then they promoted me to bartender. And then I went to head bartender. And then to manager. And then I got fired from that job. And that was like 4.5 years that I've been working at that job. And I missed a meeting. I was hungover. Didn't wake up for it. And they canned me.
Whoa. And that's all it took.
Yeah, but you know what? Just like anything else in life, they're not just firing you because you missed the meeting. I like to look back.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, not in the infant days of email, but like email wasn't ubiquitous like it is now. But in the time, I'm looking back through all the emails that I have, and my emails go back to that time period. That's the farthest back most of them go. And it's like so many emails between me and my boss of me saying, hey, I'm so sorry I didn't get that finished. Hey, so sorry it's not done. Hey, give me an extension on this. And you start looking back at it and you go, maybe I made a lot more mistakes than what I, thought of when I was at the time. Like,
how old were you at this time?
At that time I was probably 25, 24.
Okay. So I have a very, very similar journey where I never actually was full-on manager, but I was kind of manager-ish, like key, about the same age. And like, man, no one should have ever trusted me with anything. Yeah, absolutely not. I didn't end up getting fired from that job. I ended up quitting, but I was not the most reliable person. Yeah. I could say that was, what 25-year-old is.
Oh, no. The way we were drinking, the way we were carrying on, it was also crazy, like the demands and the hours and things that you would work. I've told a lot of stories to people over the years about some of the crazy shifts that we would pull, but like no joke, every week I had a shift that was started at 4 p.m. and went until maybe 5 in the morning, and then I had to be back to open up for football season 3 or 4 hours later and work another shift. And and people don't.
Yeah, Milagro.
What's that?
No, Milagro in Santa Fe, I would get 40 hours in 3 days. And it was just like open to close, back to back to back. Then I was off.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you think about it now, and I think the industry's changed a bit. I know it still exists out there, but I think a lot of, especially more progressive places are really not doing a lot of that anymore. They're trying to steer away from it. But, just saying 25 years ago was a lot different time in a lot of different ways, and most of it not good. But, it was no big deal back then for us to do that. It wasn't like, let's call the labor board, or like, let's form a union, or let's picket, or anything. None of those things existed. They just weren't even in the conversation. It was just, this is what you're doing.
So where'd you go after you got let go?
I had a big chip on my shoulder. I started working at a brewery a few nights a week, sort of part-time managing for them, and then bartending as well on the weekends. I worked at this little pizza place by my house that was very close to the university campus, and so it would be extremely busy during football and basketball season. But outside of that, it was absolutely dead. So it was one of the first places where I made like really, really great money in a night. Because everywhere else I'd worked, it was always pooling tips, And so you could make good money consistently, but you wouldn't have one of those nights where you're like, I made $700, $800. Like, and then you work at this pizza.
Those true dopamine
you work in this
hits,
little pizza place. And like during football season and basketball, when they would like kind of converge, I would make maybe $1,000 in 2 days at a little pizza place, which at the time in 2004 2005 was great money. 2006. So you would make that money and you're like, oh shit, I can just go out and you'd be getting off at like 10 p.m. And I'm like, oh, I'll go have some drinks. I've never done this before. I've always worked until 4 a.m. When you get into bad habits, you're like, oh, now I'm drinking 5 nights a week after my shift. And all that money you're making just goes right back into the till.
It evaporates very
quickly. So I kind of did that for about a year or so, drifting around, doing that stuff. And then I got an opportunity to manage, or I saw an opportunity come down the pike to manage a place called Hotel Congress, which was sort of a world-famous music venue. And it was a hotel and restaurant and bars and everything else. And they were looking for a bar manager. And I tried really hard to get in there, did some interviews, met with the GM, and he called me and he said, hey, I'm so sorry, but we're going to go with this other candidate. We think you're really qualified, and we think you're a better fit for this job, but this other person, I don't even remember the way he said it, but it was like this other person just had something on their resume that we liked more or something, which is a very strange thing to say to me, I feel like after saying, like, we thought you'd be perfect for the job, but this other person, it's like, oh, but this other person has this certification, and so bye-bye. And so I guess they offered the job to the other person, and that person turned them down, so they kind of came back to me and said, hey, maybe you should come over. But, I really wanted to work there, so I took the job. It was extremely low paying. It was like, I remember it was managing, and it was like, I think they hired me in at like $27,000 a year or something like that, to manage.
There's a reason the other guy said no, essentially.
And they were like, well, it's $27,000, but we'll bump your pay up to $30,000 after 6 months if you're doing a good job. And I was like, oh, okay. And now you start doing the math on that, and you're like, oh, I think I was working for about $14 an hour is what I was doing. And then you add all the hours in, and you say, okay, I was actually working for $12 an hour. And I did that job for about 5 years, and that was one of the most rewarding and fulfilling jobs I've ever had for a lot of different reasons. It pushed me creatively. It allowed me to sort of be on the forefront of a lot of things, especially in Tucson. And it was incredibly creatively stimulating because we were in this just sort of nexus of all of these creative people from all over the country coming in bands. I mean, I met so many famous musicians and really cool indie bands that I listened to were there just hanging out. I just absolutely love music, and the people that worked there were all creatives. Everyone was either a musician or a writer or a painter or a sculptor. So there's just a lot of that going around, and that's a great environment to be in. It really stimulates you. So, I did that for 5 years. I like to think that we did some really great things there, and we sort of established it as a cocktail spot, which there just wasn't previously in Tucson. And that was right around the same time that they were starting to get a couple little cocktail offshoots, and there were some really talented bartenders in Tucson who had come. They were Tucsonans who had moved away to like Brooklyn, and they'd been there for 2 or 3 years and had come back and brought sort of the New York cocktail ethos back to Tucson, which was really cool. And a lot of what I was doing was, I guess, what they would have called West Coast bartending at the time. And then there'd be a lot of East Coast influence coming in, which was a lot more like heavily classic sort of Sasha Petrosky influenced stuff. Death & Co. had just opened at the time, and it was like, we hadn't been to Death & Co., but we could get the menu online, so we'd go through and sort of go, oh, man, that's so cool, or, oh, that's not anything that cool. We could do the same thing.
Yeah. It was 2006,
2007
right?
is, I think, when they opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's when Clyde Commons opened too. It was a good time. A lot of people coming on the
reading
scene.
Jeffrey Morgenthaler's stuff, that was a whole nother thing. The whole staff would kind of crowd around a computer screen and would say, hey, what did he post today? Oh, he posted something about a barrel-aged cocktail. I mean, like, these were the things we all got excited about. These were,
Oh, yeah. No, in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's what we were doing too.
Yeah. And I think every community kind of grows differently. And I think you see accelerated growth in communities where there's a lot more financial investment in bars. And unfortunately for Tucson, the thing that has always held Tucson back is that all of the financial backing and new openings and everything have always been concentrated on non-cocktail centric things. They just don't put money into that. The people who have money don't give money to, people who've been established in the community. They generally give it to really young people of no experience, or people who want to open a sports bar, or people who want to open a restaurant that just could care less about the cocktails. It's kind of changing now, maybe. Like up here in Phoenix, we open like 30 new restaurants a month, and it's insane. In Tucson, that's maybe a good 2-year span. Like when you start talking about, the kind of pace of growth. And when I'm saying restaurants, I mean like higher profile restaurants, not just like somebody opened a taco truck or somebody opened another location of XYZ. And I just think nobody really ever gave cocktails a chance. They just didn't feel like that was something they could put money into and make it work. There have been a few places that have, but I just think ultimately it was like somebody with a lot of money allowing somebody young who talked a big game to sort of have the keys to something, and then when it didn't work out the way they wanted, they kind of took it away and said, this isn't really working. And that is not in any way, shape, or form to diminish the accomplishments of any of the people in Tucson who are doing great things. I mean, it has its own gin-centric bar now, which is fantastic. I love seeing that. But it's just the pace at which it moves is so much slower than what it should, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I totally feel that, especially spending so much time in Santa Fe. I love Santa Fe. It's got a special place in my heart. It's a weird city, and it's just like, as beautiful as it is, there's 50,000 people there and that's it. And Albuquerque's a little rough, but the bar scene in Albuquerque is exploding faster than Santa Fe ever could, because it's just, there's space, there's people, there's money. Like, it's just easier to do. All the buildings aren't historical artifacts where you can't, just like, you can love a place, but also recognize that, like, change is a little slower.
Well, I mean, I think Albuquerque and Tucson are actually sister cities, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
And there's a lot of similarities.
Weird.
If you've ever been to both, there's so many similarities, so much so that I believe both of those were being considered for Breaking Bad initially.
I mean, spending a lot of time in New Mexico, they nailed it. That's the right spot to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm guessing this is about the time that you end up leaving Tucson?
Oh, no, actually, I leave the Hotel Congress. This is 2010, 2011. I basically got an opportunity to Tony Abou-Ghanem, who was a mentor of mine for many years, and was one of the people that really advocated for me earlier in my career. He was opening a casino with some of the same people that did the Bellagio. And they were doing that in Tucson, and so they were looking for somebody to sort of helm the program. And so I ended up interviewing for and getting that job, and I was there for 7 years, which is definitely
that's kind of a no-brainer.
It was a no-brainer to take the job, but also I was there for way too long, I think. I think we did some really amazing things, created the first tribal bartending academy in the United States, because it was a tribal casino, Pasquayaki. The casino was beautiful, a lot of great people there. Just had a lot of challenges, which is like most of them were Tucson challenges, to be honest with you, which is just trying to do something maybe that's more advanced or just doesn't have the support of the community, because of a lot of it's demographic. Like, Tucson is not a very rich city, and there are pockets of people with a lot of money in Tucson, but they're all concentrated in sort of the northwest area. So when you're talking about craft cocktails and like spirits and things that actually, it costs a little bit of money to go out and have a good time and have a good cocktail. And this was a casino that was promoting $2 Miller Lite all the time. So it's kind of like there's a duality there that's very difficult to sort of get past. And most casino guests are not interested in craft cocktails. They're interested in gaming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So it's kind of tough.
There,
like
so.
it was a tough thing. Just you have to. It's a lot of staffing and having to staff from a very small pool of people. Most of the time, it was challenging. 24 hours, but the bar has to sort of, or the bar would abide by Arizona state law, even though I guess it technically didn't have to, but then that opens up a Pandora's box of like, if they don't observe Arizona state law, then they lose other benefits of being in Arizona, I guess. It's tricky to try anything on tribal land is kind of tricky like one. That. Like,
my wife runs the marketing for River Spirit in Tulsa, which is interesting because we used to live down the street and now it's 7 hours away, but she still does 24 hours. It just, I don't know. It sounds like a nightmare. Like I can barely handle dinner only. It's like, I can only imagine.
I mean, it's a huge operation. Yeah. Lots of people involved. Gives you a taste of the corporate life. So it's like definitely like dealing with corporate structure. So it's the most corporate thing I've ever done. Lots of approval processes, working with a warehouse, working with like, ordering through a warehouse, requisitioning things, all those things that are a humongous pain in the ass, having to do all of that. But it's a great experience. I'm glad I did it. Met a lot of great people. But ultimately, when that opportunity came along to do Little Rituals, I had to take it. Yeah,
no brainer again. Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything in your journey that really stuck with you, surprised you, something you would have gone back and done differently if you could?
I mean, if we're going to get the regrets game, this is going to be a 3-hour podcast. I mean,
how much longer can we go? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've made mistakes at almost every juncture. Most of them having to do with being too cautious. I'm an extremely cautious person, which has benefited me in a lot of ways. But I'm sure that I have missed so many opportunities and so many things just because I was like moving. Like I was very resistant to moving. I guess I'm scared. I guess I was just kind of nervous or just didn't know what I was going to do in another place. It just didn't feel secure. So, it took me so long just to move to Phoenix. And that's an hour and a half north of Tucson. That was a big move for me. So I think being too cautious was definitely something that, they say that whole phrase, like move fast and break stuff. I think I broke a lot of things, but yeah.
We're not all Facebook, no, we're not. Though,
I think I made a lot of mistakes by not taking opportunities and not taking the plunge and not having enough faith in myself or my abilities to just say, okay, I can do this. And that's mostly what I would say I regret the most, or like what I would have done differently. But then there's a lot of times where I had an opportunity and I chose not to do it. And then we see what happened. Like, there have been a few places where opportunities where it's like, hey, come and invest into this company and put a substantial amount of money into this, more money than you've ever had in your life. And then that business failed quickly or something. And everyone involved, didn't work out for them. So I've dodged a few bullets too. So,
which maybe it wouldn't have failed.
Maybe not, but you never know.
You can never go back. Yeah,
and I mean,
for sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so in my past, I got offered the job as a GM at a really great restaurant in Tulsa, and really weighed it for a while, and then ended up staying with the company, moving up here and opening a new spot for the company I was currently working for. And that other place, no joke, right after I moved, burned down. Like, yeah, Lowood. Lowood is the name. And it was just like, man, did I dodge a bullet there? Like, yeah. So I would have upended my life just to have the restaurant go away.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't think I've had anything quite that dramatic, but... Yeah. But I would say also some other things too is, putting your whole self into something immediately. And again, I think things we learned from Little Rituals, like one, I've told people this before, but when we opened it, we were very conservative about what we were doing. We're like, oh, well, we'll finish the rest of it later. Or like once we get some business going, we'll do X, Y, Z. And I think that looking back on that, we could say that was a mistake. Like when we opened, we didn't have any artwork on the walls. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like the place was not finished when we opened. But we just felt like we had to open, or we felt like we might as well. But we really should have spent a little bit of extra money, because it wouldn't have been that much money. It wouldn't have been that much time, but it would have made a huge impact on the first impression that the place was giving off to people. Because the Little Rituals that you walk into now is not like the Little Rituals you walked into in 2019 in January. They just were two completely different places. From the look, the feel, the service. One of the things that COVID did for us was it really helped us galvanize our service standards, and everybody got on the same page, and the team was able to do multiple things and was much more team-oriented and less about me, and my money and my time, and it was more about, hey, collectively, we want to be great.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true in the restaurant industry. The second you open your doors, that's the second you lose all control of your time. But when your doors are closed and you're kind of developing everything, still putting it together, you still have some time to like sort it out. And I do sympathize with wanting to rush though, because it's hard to see your bank account go down and no money coming back in. It's especially with all you went through, and like, yeah, numbers keep going.
I mean, there's definitely pressure for that, and I mean, it's just one of those things that now, like for the next project, we know, hey, we're not gonna skimp on X, Y, Z. We're not gonna do these things in stages. It's like there are certain things that have to be done right off the bat. I mean, not everything has to be day one, but there's a certain level. I think we just, maybe the pictures on the walls.
Maybe the pictures on the walls.
Some of those things, but.
You have anything cool coming up in the near future? Anything you can talk about?
I've always got a bunch of irons and fires. Always looking at a lot of different things. But again, going back to the cautious thing, my partner and I are pretty reserved as far as what we do. We don't like to put it out there until it actually happens or is actually going to happen. And also, it's a really tough time for this industry. And looking at the landscape for the next 2 years, it's filled with a lot of uncertainty. And there are some people that are opening places at breakneck speed, which is great that they're able to do that. It's not our style. And I think for the next things that we're going to do, they really need to make sense for us, for the community. We're not going to try, I can tell you this, we're not going to try to force another Bitter and Twisted or Little Rituals down anyone's throat. If the market doesn't really support it, or the evidence isn't there for a really focused craft place, then that's not the direction we're going to go. We're going to go in a different direction. But if it is, and that's something we want to do, that's what we'll put forth. But I think, that's one of those things that you kind of learn over time is, it really matters what the community wants and needs. And that's going to determine the success a lot of the time. And I mean, I think Bitter and Twisted was one of those things where Ross opened it up because that's what he wanted to do. And there was a need in the community for that, but it took people a while to realize that that was what they needed and wanted. Because the craft cocktail phenomenon just had not reached Phoenix yet. But he was at the forefront of that. So you can either be first and lead the pack, or you need to come in and fill a niche that's not like being filled, currently.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's rough being right, but early, because you are right and you see it, but no one else does. So you're Ross saying, am I like? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things that we're doing consistently right now that continue to develop are, of course, Arizona Cocktail Week, which we have been doing now for 15 years, and we're still. It's really become sort of one of the top cocktail events in the country. really behind BCB and Tails as sort of one of the leaders. And we're still doing that, and that continues to grow and continues to be sort of a beacon here for cocktail culture. And that'll come up next year. So we're highly anticipating that, working on that already. We're bringing upwards of 50 of the top bars every year in the world into the Arizona market as part of one of our signature events, Top Bars. And now we're just finding so many bars from all around the world are coming in on their own to be a part of it. So that's a really gratifying thing. And then the other project that we're working on too is something called Stable Beverage, which we've been doing for a few years. But that is a juice alternative, essentially. So we make,
pesky perishable juice.
We sort of make lemon and lime juice from the ground up, sort of calibrate it to work just like lemon and lime juice. It's not a clarified thing. It's not super juice. It's its own sort of beverage. But we've been doing that for 3 years. We're starting to build, a clientele. It kind of goes up and down because we haven't really had the ability to scale it yet because we've been very busy, and it's just one of those things that, if you're not completely focused on that, it's kind of hard to grow that business. But we're starting to.
No one's breaking down the doors trying to. Do you have shelf stable
some
substitute for lime juice?
It's not exactly shelf stable because I will say this, and it bears repeating. Citrus compounds do not survive shelf stability. They just don't. No one has been able to crack this code. People with billions of dollars and flavor scientists have not been able to crack this code. If you've ever but we consider ourselves like refrigerator stable. So we keep it refrigerated. We guarantee it for a certain amount of days after it's made. I mean, it can really be 6 months in the refrigerator. It still works pretty well. That's not what we would say from a health code standpoint, but like it can last indefinitely in there. But like, you'll see a lot of products out there that are shelf stable that can be kept at room temperature in clear bottles. I mean, there's so many problems with that to go into. Just those compounds just do not last. And companies know that. It's just, but we're working on that. We're really proud of it, and we're hoping that it'll come to a market near you soon.
Nice. Yeah, and for the guest who's at home, who's listening, and wants to find out, maybe they hear this in 6 months, 12 months. Where could they go to learn more about you? Or where could they find
I have
more of your stuff?
I have a website called solidsipping.com. That's my consulting company, umbrella company that sort of has interest in Arizona Cocktail Weekend and Stable and Little Rituals. Obviously, you can go to littleritualsbar.com and learn all about the story of Little Rituals, which is my primary focus. There's not a whole lot of stuff out there about me personally, because I'm more interested in all the projects that we're doing. Yeah.
You're busy.
I should probably get some hobbies.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I heard that writing.
Well, I would love to get back to that at some point and do a book or sort of something worthwhile from all of my experience in the industry and kind of channel it. I think there's a lot of good bar books out there. Some of your guests have written some of those bar books, but one of these days maybe that'll be me too.
Well, I mean, Little Rituals just is purpose built to be a bar book. That would work very well. You could probably write something autobiography called Instability if that ever takes off.
I could do that now.
You got some options there. Just so you know, anyone who's listening and they didn't have a chance to write down those websites, I'll have them all in the show notes. Is there anything that you'd be remiss if we didn't cover before we
I don't think so. I'm just I'm really happy to reconnect with you, Andrew. It's great to see that you're doing so well, and you've got an awesome podcast.
Yeah.
You've had some really great guests on here, so I'm very appreciative that you considered me for that list of illustrious folk.
Well, I mean, Arizona Cocktail Week has held a place in my heart ever since I went the first time. And I have some great memories. And it's one of those things that, it's such a special thing, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And I've really, all the people I met out there, that you see them like once or twice and that's it. But it's like, oh yeah, this person, that like Ross is a great example. I still remember him DJing the Last Singer Standing. He was
he does have his wild streak.
A lot of fun, and I'm in the process of trying to put together USBG Omaha too, because I want to see if we can get a sort of cocktail week going out here. So I've only been here for 2 years, though. The journey is uphill, and you know how it is. A lot of people say they're interested.
Building a chapter is hard,
later, sort of
but
thing.
It can be very fulfilling. I think the national USBG is doing some really cool stuff these days with new leadership, and I'm excited to see them kind of bring it back. I was heavily involved in that for many years, and I just got a little bit too busy here to be as involved as I'd like to be. Maybe at one point I can get back to it. I still recommend it to any young bartenders or young people in the industry, but yeah, it's good to hear you're doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, awesome. Aaron,
thanks Andrew.
Thanks for coming on. It was a real pleasure to talk to you again. Thank you for listening. That is today's episode. Now, if you have not taken a moment to check out our website, please do. It's servesyouRightPod.com. We have past episodes and all sorts of other things there. If you want to get in touch with me, that's the place to do it. I do appreciate that you've given me your most valuable asset, your time and attention. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned. We have some really cool guests coming up. I would hate it if you missed it. Cheers.